we've recently received questions in the Reiki Cafe community, our Facebook group. Please join us over there if you have not yet already. It's fantastic. And I'm really going to turn this question over to Bruce because this is part of his expertise and training from the Japanese lineage of his Reiki training. So what does Gassho mean to you, Bruce?
Yeah, so Gassho is a fundamental practice in Usui Reiki Ryoho, right? It's a fundamental practice as well in meditation and in yoga. It's when people physically are bringing your hands together at the heart center, usually closing your eyes and bowing. And the base understanding, or kind of the base meaning, at least what it means to me, is non-duality or stillness or peace or wholeness. Right. And so it's a way to really dive into the stillness of all life. It's like, if I want to be grateful for, imagine, Christine, if you've just been my Reiki practitioner, right? And you've held space for me to really go deep. You've held a really beautiful session for me. Then if I bring my hands together and bow to you, then I'm bringing my left side and my right side together, my feminine energy and my masculine energy together over the heart. And so it's essentially that I'm saying thank you with all of my heart. You know what I mean? So it's not like one side of me is saying thank you, but maybe the other side has some kind of snide comment hidden in the background, like a little cloaked dagger almost. It's not like there's any friction there. It's thank you with all of my heart. Right.
I love that simple explanation. And it makes so much sense. Like when I started practicing like Gassho meditation, it was I didn't have a trainer. I don't know if you know this story, Bruce, but, and maybe some of our listeners have heard me mention it, but I mean, it took a while for the practice of Gassho to hit the US. I mean, this was very common in Usui Reiki Ryoho and the traditional lineages, but for me out in Montana without a lot of Reiki masters, the way I started doing Gassho, it came to me in meditation. Like my guides were like, I asked my Reiki guides to tell me what to do next. And that's what they led me to do. Bring my hands to prayer pose, bring them to heart center. And then I would actually be guided to bow my head. So my chin would rest on my forefingers and really feel the breath. But it was that balance, that harmony in the heart space, the balancing of feminine and masculine energy. And then it was like a few years later that it really came out, and the Reiki magazine, Reiki News magazine, like Gassho discovered, and I was like, oh yeah, I've been doing that for a while now.
Right.
But when did you start practicing? Like when did you really kind of get familiar with the practice?
Well, it came with my trainings, but it was never like fully, and my trainings meaning when I first started in like 2006. And it was further reestablished for me when I did my yoga trainings as a teacher, because we bow in Namaste. And it's the same thing. Nobody was saying it's Gassho, but in Namaste, we quite often hold the heart center and say something like, the light within me recognizes and cherishes the light within you. Or, the gratitude in my heart reaches out to the gratitude of your heart, or something in that kind of language. So it's always been kind of my practice until I started to really jump into the specific Japanese lineage and practice, and then learning in Japan and everything else. Then it took on a whole deeper meaning, because I didn't understand the Buddhist approach to it. And the Buddhist approach is that we're looking at it from a non-dualistic perspective. I really love what you were just saying there when you were putting your hands in prayer, Gassho, and it was touching your chin, because there's even a symbolism to that. I won't jump into it here because it's a whole nother discussion, but the meridians that come onto the fingers, you were saying that it kind of touched probably just the middle finger. Well, the middle finger means something. And so you're making a connection to that part and that meridian of the body just in that simple practice. So deeper, we go a little bit deeper as well. When you hold Gassho from a Reiki perspective, you keep a gap between the hands, and we can feel the presence of energy there. If when you're bowing into Gassho, and like you said, Christine, if you bow your head close to your hands, you might actually feel the heat of Reiki radiating up. You might actually be able to smell it. It has a different smell. It's not like heat from your body doesn't smell, but if you hold your hands in Gassho, there's some sort of a sweetness to it almost, Like there's something else there. I can't really describe it. But when I started to then unpack that even further, there's a great book that I'd recommend everybody to read. It's called The Light That Shines Through Infinity, Zen and the Energy of the Universe. I believe that's what it's called. It's by Dinan Katagari, who's a Buddhist monk. And he talks all about this, is that he's saying that if you just bow in Gassho, if you really bow through and through, not from a Reiki perspective, just bow into Gassho and focus on the area between your hands, then you can start to recognize that the energy that's there is the entire universe, because it's non-dualistic. So that energy and that pressure, that heat that you feel, that is the love of all creation. And if you're holding that right over your heart, well, then what space is there for anything else? You know what I mean? Like your suffering and your traumas and your belief about yourself and everything, like there's just no space for that, because you're feeling literally the flow of energy of the universe. And like you beautifully said, you put your head down to it and it will waft over you. So it's pretty clear, like it's pretty much right there, you know?
Yeah,
So
I love that. And I think that's why I love practicing Gassho, is because you can feel the energy between your hands. You have that space. You can feel your breath. You can tune in. It is just a really excellent way to center yourself. And so this is a great practice to do before your sessions, to center after your sessions. And for me, it feels very much like you're completely present, you're completely centered, there's nothing else. And it's a really great basics meditation that anyone can start with, even if it's like, I'm just going to hold this space and pay attention to the sensation in my hands, and I can feel my breath and I can smell what's coming through. That right there, that mindfulness and that meditation practice can be a really great start to a beautiful meditation journey.